Great, thanks for that, Kat. So basically, the first few slides that I'm going to go through are going to focus on the why, when, what, how, and who of church buildings care and maintenance. And then Kat will introduce an outline on the permissions framework, the faculty process that enables repair and development of church buildings. I'm trying to forward my... Oh, that's a bit weird. Okay. Right. Bear with me while I try to work out how to forward my thing to the next slide. Well, there we go. Okay. So the areas which Kat and I are going to broadly scope out for you are the top 3 bullets on this screen that you can see here. And whilst we may touch on the second 3 bullets, they're really things that need sessions in their own right. So we haven't got time to cover everything in detail. So as we can never know exactly what questions and contributions people are coming to the session with, and we've got quite a mixed group this evening, we're leaving quite a long period after our input to respond to questions, get some views from the brains in the room, because there's often people bring expertise with them as well, and clarify any points where we can. So the why of church buildings, which is an important question before we do anything really, to know why. So in their own right, church buildings are the embodiment and repository of the story of faithfulness, and also are a valued cultural asset for which we are trustees. So as trustee of, in effect, a local charity, the PCC, it's a legal responsibility that we need to take seriously. And when we think about the Diocesan vision, for instance, we rightly think in terms of church as people, the mission and ministries in which they're involved. However, I think when we're thinking about buildings, it can be quite helpful to express the role of church buildings in the terms of that same vision. So if we think of transforming lives, church buildings play a key role in transforming lives by acting as a stage for people's major life events, baptisms, weddings, funerals, and so on. They also play a major role in growing church by providing a sanctuary of peace, a space to worship God, and a place to teach and inspire. They also play many roles in the building of community. Meeting place, polling station, community hub, food bank, spiritual resource centre, just to name a few off the top of my head. So this integration of buildings with the life of the church is important for us to consider, as most people don't come into the ministry or into a ministry to look after church buildings, but nonetheless, most new incumbents and wardens will have more than one building to think about. So here are, I think, the 4 perhaps main reasons for taking maintenance of buildings seriously. So to preserve heritage, regular, minimal and small scale work helps maintain original features and historical fabric. We do it to save money. When things go wrong, they cost a lot to put right. Blocked rainwater goods or a couple of slip tiles in of themselves are small things, but left unchecked can often lead to figures up to 5-figure sums further down the way. Preventative maintenance is sustainable. By keeping buildings in a good condition, we save the energy and materials needed to repair them and indeed to heat them. And also it helps to promote guardianship and community involvement. So historic churches are held in trust for the next generation, as they have been for centuries. Maintenance is one area where we can involve the wider community in caring for their own heritage, even if they don't attend services regularly. Also, the state of the building, I think, reflects on the church community, and it is our responsibility to manage the bricks and mortar in a way that encourages others to get involved with their parish church. So the when. So I think often one of the key reasons that quinquennial inspection reports, and I don't know whether any of you have not seen one or whether several of you have seen more than you want to see, they can feel quite overwhelming because often maintenance issues have been allowed to build up and then they all come home to roost in one go. A regular focus on 3 key elements of maintenance will help the PCC to keep on top of building care. So this is all about continuous and cyclical approach to care and maintenance of the building. So the 3 things I think are: undertake regular inspections to assess the condition, identify problems, and to decide whether work is indeed necessary. Planning regular maintenance tasks like clearing gutters, testing services, checking for damp, and clearing the churchyard, and so on. Keeping on top of minor repairs to the building. These can come about as a result of, say, extreme weather, and can include fixing slip roof tiles, replacing broken glass, or making temporary flashband repairs, for example. The kit, which is useful, I think, for PCCs to have available for these inspections. So that would include things like gloves, torch, camera, something to measure with, that kind of thing. If you know someone also who has a drone and who is suitably skilled and has the correct license, you can also benefit from pictures and video footage of the roof, the tower, and other high-level building attributes and elements. So all quinquennial inspections draw attention to the regular maintenance tasks, but there are many helpful maintenance calendars available from various heritage and denominational sources. So don't wait until your next inspection before you make use of one. It is an invaluable tool when trying to engage others in the regular maintenance tasks. So quinquennial inspections, if you're not familiar with them, as the name suggests, should be procured by the PCC from an inspecting architect every 5 years. So each church building has an inspecting architect, and you should be able to find out who that is from the logbook or the most recent quinquennial inspection report, or you could always ask me or Kat. So quinquennial inspections range in style and length. I've seen them 15 pages long and I've seen them 60 pages long. Often the longer ones have a lot of photographs as well. But they should follow general guidance produced by Church Buildings Council. They're a state of the nation, so to speak, and shouldn't be taken as a specification for works or for costing, although it should give an estimate of likely costs within broad bands. And when I say broad bands, I mean broad bands. So these are useful, I think, when you're thinking about, broadly speaking, the amount of money that you need to think about putting aside for repairs over a quinquennial period. But you've got things like band 1, which is £0 to £2,000, right up to band 6, which is £250,000 or more. So if you see a lot of band 6 repairs on your quinquennial inspection, you're in trouble. So there is guidance available also about other regular written test reports on asbestos, heating, electrical, fire protection, and lightning systems. On the year that you have the quinquennial done, the quinquennial inspection, if the annual test can be completed prior to the inspection date, then the results can be discussed and included in that report. So you've got a record of them then and there. A good inspecting architect will be willing to go through the report with the PCC, adding clarification and answering questions. So the what? Urgent is urgent. Everything's urgent. Recommendations for immediate action in a quinquennial report are always something you should bring to the PCC's attention at the next meeting. It is well understood that acting on small repairs now can save up to 20% in costs further down the line. If you haven't inherited a maintenance or management plan from your predecessor, you can use a template which has been developed by Historic England, which has been adapted and endorsed by the adopted and endorsed by the Church of England. And this document will help you organise your approach to all things buildings, with sections that take you methodically through the inspection and planning process. So it tends to work. I always think of, when you're thinking about maintaining buildings and planning maintenance in, is work from the top down and from the outside in. So keep it dry and keep it safe. So roofs, rainwater goods, walls and windows through to the inside, which is the roof spaces, floor voids, and all the internal fabric, as well as all the building services and safety equipment. So quinquennial inspection reports also do draw your attention to the challenge of accessibility. Maintenance and safety of equipment is really important in this respect, and also is having an up-to-date accessibility audit. Where it's possible, keeping your church building open and welcoming is one of the key routes to sustainability. As part of this, we all know that if a building is well cared for and uncluttered, it draws you in and encourages you to engage with its meaning and peace. So the how. You may be a building nerd or a building novice, but getting to know your building makes your building, what makes your building tick, will be very helpful as you negotiate the relationship with your architect and contractors. However, and it's important to stress this, you do not need to be or become an expert. After all, that's what you pay the professionals for. Also, others have trod the path before you and hopefully will have left good records behind them. Somebody's laughing loudly there. You weren't muted, were you? So the terrier or inventory, for instance, is something you should review as you come into post to make sure everything is present and correct. The logbook is a comprehensive record of all alterations, additions, removals, repairs to the fabric, fixtures and fittings of the church and churchyard. It is essentially the story of the fabric of the building and its curtilage. The information, if complete, will help you plan for future maintenance and repair, as there will be a record of contractors used and payments made. So if your inspecting architect has carried out a run of quinquennials, then they will also be very familiar with the church building and will be able to help the PCC engage with the inspection report and also enable you to engage the most appropriate professional help. There's also a wealth of experience in adjoining parishes, with more experienced clergy and wardens who could help point you in the right direction. There is also for churchwardens, sorry, curates, there is a Churchwardens private Facebook group where you can post questions to your peers and also share information yourself. Also, of course, there's the Buildings for Mission team here in the Parish Support Office, although I'm speaking from my front room in Belper at the moment, which is definitely not the Parish Support Office. I won't show you around. So there's myself, Church Building Support Officer, Kat, who you're going to hear from shortly, who is the Diocesan Advisory Committee Secretary. Then we have a Diocesan Environmental Officer as part of the team, who at the moment is Samuel Ojok. Some of you will have met Samuel. The Net Zero Carbon Programme and Project Manager, William Rolls. And also we are now about to hire a Church Decarbonisation Officer as well. So whilst always busy, we will do our best to help and encourage, or at least point you in the right direction. Now, we couldn't possibly cover, I think, the very many issues that might crop up as you manage the building and its churchyard in this one short session. So this is really a whistle-stop tour. There will be other gatherings and webinars, so keep your eyes peeled. The Church of England's own Church Care, along with other heritage bodies such as the Society for the Protection of Ancient Buildings, otherwise known as SPAB, thank heavens, and the National Churches Trust and the like, all host sites with an enormous amount of breadth and depth of guidance, templates, webinars, and videos. So incumbent and/or warden provide the leadership, but many others are stakeholders in the building. So communication skills are important, and spreading the load will be easier if people understand the issues and feel able to contribute. The chief skill, of course, for all of us is that of delegation. The building is of the parish, for the parish, and should ideally be by the parish. So the who. It's not a rock, well, it is a rock band. It is important to bring not just the regular congregation, but also the wider parish along the building's journey with you. Your leadership through things like mission action planning or something similar can help others understand how a well-maintained building can be an asset for the mission and ministry of the church. Assessing the condition and capability of the church building is the first stage in creating a local building development plan. And there's a toolkit for this, which can be found in the resources section of the Diocesan website. It is the responsibility of the whole PCC to take a planned approach to maintenance and repair through sound and collective decision making. It enables them to budget and create cash flow forecasts and to make decisions about levels of reserves. I cannot emphasize enough that your PCC should have a framework within which to understand and decide on financing building care and maintenance. This is even more important where there is just a small PCC and no separate fabric committee or building group, as otherwise it can feel that the entire PCC meetings are taken over by building issues, leaving no time for anything else. Fabric committees and working groups, if you have them, should be instructed by and well anchored to the PCC. They should have a clear brief, relevant designated authority, and clear reporting lines back to the PCC. Then there's the wider parish. One of the bigger challenges, I think, for us as the local church is the question of emotional ownership of the building, with us often referring to our church rather than the parish church. When finances are tight and buildings feel more of a burden, it is the time to look at the engagement the church instigates with the wider parish. Certainly from a building sustainability perspective, I often say that when there are, say, 40 or so worshippers and money in the bank, that is the time to make sure that the connections with the wider parish community are strong and growing. A sustainable building is one that is known and used. Friends of groups can be everything from informal groupings of supporters that willingly get involved with tasks and festivals, through to a formal PCC subcommittee, or even a separately constituted charity which raises funds for maintenance and repair. I've already referred to the Buildings for Mission team, but there is another colleague who can be a great ally in the arena of finance, and that is our very own Steve Johnson. The Living Generously advisor, some of you will have met him, who is rolling out, amongst other things, digital giving across the diocese. Finally, there's the registrar who can offer advice and guidance of a legal nature and maintains a variety of diocesan records. And Church House also has some historical property records in connection with churches and their ancillary buildings. So that is a whistle-stop tour by me of care and maintenance. And I'm now going to hand over to Kat for the remaining slides to talk about her role and the faculty process. So over to you, Kat, and if you can let me know when to click you along. Here's your first slide.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I'm in the background because I'm getting messages about people not being able to join in and trying to do stuff around people joining in. So apologies for that. Okay, so I guess the first thing to say is I'm always a little bit nervous whenever I'm asked to do any kind of presentation or training about the DAC, because I am very aware that not everybody thinks that the faculty process is as interesting as I do. So I want to just start by saying where I've come from, and that is that I totally understand how daunting a process the faculty system can be. I served as a church warden for 6 years, quite some time ago now, but the idea at that time of having to submit a faculty application absolutely filled me with dread. So if you've come along to this tonight and you are thinking, yeah, I'm pretty nervous about submitting a faculty application, I want you to know I understand where you're at because I've been there too. And I hope that what I'm going to talk about tonight will just help put your mind at ease at least a little bit, and you'll come away with at least a bit of knowledge. I have to admit that the words fun and faculty aren't often found in the same sentence, even from me, but I hope that we'll have a little bit of fun by the end of tonight as well. If you take nothing else from what I'm going to say this evening, the one thing that I would love for you to take away is that I am contactable and I'm very, very happy to respond to your questions. So whenever you have a question about church building and wondering about the permission that you might need to have in place, please don't hesitate to ring me or email me and ask, okay? The first thing I'm going to do is just a quick introduction to the work of the Diocesan Advisory Committee for the Care of Churches, which we shortened down to DAC for obvious reasons. The key word in there is advisory. The DAC advises in two ways. It offers informal advice to churches, and it offers formal advice to the diocesan chancellor. In the broadest terms, the DAC is all about churches, by which I mean the worshiping communities of people, wanting to make changes to their church buildings or churchyards. It's not uncommon to hear people use an expression along the lines of, we have to get the approval of the DAC. So it's really important to understand that the DAC is actually not the ultimate decision maker on these changes. The DAC serves to advise the diocesan chancellor, who's the person that makes the determination about the proposed changes that churches want to make. The DAC as a committee is made up of archdeacons, architects, clergy, lay people from around the diocese, as well as representatives from heritage bodies like Historic England and immunity societies. Alongside the members of the DAC, we also have specialist advisors who can advise the churches or the committee about particular areas of their expertise, such as sustainability, bells, clocks, organs. And they can offer independent advice to churches prior to a faculty application being submitted. And those people are readily available to you. You just need to, well, I can put you in touch with them. For larger projects, the DAC might arrange to conduct a site visit and come out to the church, usually an archdeacon, the DAC duty architect, and some other DAC members, and visit with the PCC and talk about the potential plans, and sometimes develop and refine the plans as a result of that visit prior to the application then being submitted. That can help to make the application stronger and one that is then more likely to move more smoothly through the faculty process. Across the Diocese of Derby, there are 314 open church buildings, and approximately 3/4 of those are listed buildings, which means that they've been identified as significant nationally and therefore subject to certain protections so that they can be maintained for the nation's heritage. Of our listed buildings, 66 churches in the diocese are grade 1 listed. And just to understand how significant those grade 1 listed buildings are, of all of the listed buildings in the country, only 2.5% of those listed buildings are grade 1 listed. So the fact that we have 66 of them in the diocese is quite significant. The Church of England enjoys something called the ecclesiastical exemption to listed building consent, which means that for changes to your churches, permission's granted via the faculty system rather than going to the local authority and going through their listed building consent system. For some changes to the exterior of a church, you would also have to apply for planning permission as well as faculty permission. Because the faculty process sits alongside that secular listed building consent system, it needs to be as robust a process. It's that stringent process that enables the church with a big C to operate under the ecclesiastical exemption. However, the advantage to it is that by having its own internal permission process, the church's faculty process provides the opportunity for the chancellor of the diocese to balance the historic and architectural significance of our church buildings with the need to make them fit for mission and ministry. I'm going to run through now what will be included in a good faculty application. So the starting point of a good faculty application is to think you're submitting it to people who may have no familiarity whatsoever with your church, because it isn't just the DAC who will look at it, but it's also external consultees. So assume that people aren't familiar with your project or your plans and the reasons why, and that they aren't familiar with your church itself. The application may, depending on what it's for, include architect's drawings, specification and schedule of works, and drawings or photographs to show what's currently in existence that you want to change. Your submission will also include a statement of significance and a statement of needs, and these are really crucial parts of your application. The statement of significance is the church's opportunity to clearly articulate how it understands and appreciates the heritage of its building, its features, and any architectural historic significance. And then the statement of needs is the opportunity to explain why the church is proposing the changes that it is. How will those changes help to further the church's mission and ministry? Part of the faculty process for any listed church is formal consultation with Historic England and the appropriate amenity societies such as Victorian Society, Society for Protection of Ancient Buildings, etc. And sometimes we also consult the Church of England's Church Buildings Council. All of those consultees will be looking closely at the statement of significance and statement of needs to look at the potential harm to the building that might be caused by the proposed change and whether the stated need justifies that potential harm. Now, in the Diocese of Derby, our DAC tries to operate in as proactive way as possible to move applications through the process as swiftly as they can. Our DAC members and advisors will review applications prior to DAC meetings, and they'll raise questions so that PCCs have the opportunity to respond and provide additional information. The DAC will look at the PCC's responses to any concerns or questions raised by external consultees as well. We try, wherever possible, to issue the DAC's notification of advice following the first DAC meeting at which the application is considered. In 2024, that was the case for about 85% of applications. For some more complex applications, that's not possible. And the full DAC may have to consider an application over the course of several meetings as further information is provided and as responses from external consultees come into the process for consideration as well. For the majority of applications, what the process looks like is a series of back and forth emails between me and the PCC to seek further information and responses to questions, with that whole package of information then going to the DAC committee to consider and issue its advice. And I know that sometimes that process can feel overly detailed and perhaps a bit picky, but it's done in the spirit of trying to get an application to a place where it receives the DAC's advice to recommend it at the first meeting where it's considered. The DAC's advice can take three forms. The DAC could recommend an application, it could say that it does not recommend an application, or it can say that it does not object. Because of the work that we do to get additional information, respond to questions, address consultees' concerns, our Diocese of Derby DAC generally recommends over 90% of the applications that are submitted. After the DAC issues its formal advice, the PCC will then be notified, and the next stage in the process is to display public notices in the same way that you see a notice go up if your neighbor wants to extend their house, for example, like a secular planning notice. That goes up for 30 days, and it gives members of the public the opportunity to comment. Once that process is complete, the application then goes on to the diocesan registrar for further processing. And sometimes it's possible that the registry may come back to the PCC with further questions before then sending the application to the chancellor for a determination. In making the determination on a faculty case, the chancellor will be looking at the DAC's advice, the responses from the external consultees, and the PCC's responses to any concerns that have been raised, along with the whole of the PCC's submission, so the drawings, the specifications, schedule of works, etc. And the chancellor then applies something that's called the Duffield questions, because it came from a case arising from St. Alkmund's and Duffield, where there's a balance between the potential harm to the church in terms of its significance as a building of special architectural or historic interest, with the resulting public benefit of the proposed changes. So, for example, liturgical freedom or pastoral well-being or opportunities for mission. So the chancellor is taking all of that into consideration and then making a determination. And at that point, the chancellor then goes back and the registry will contact the PCC and issue the faculty. And you'll get that formal document that says that you then have the permission in place, and also details any conditions to that permission if there are any. So that's a kind of overall view of the full faculty process. Gareth, would you switch to the next slide, please? I want to talk about other levels of permission as well as faculty. And these are shorter processes. So there are some works that churches we have list A and list B, which are appended to the faculty jurisdiction rules, essentially. And they are literal lists of things. There are some works to churches that are listed in list A. These are primarily things that are works to unlisted buildings, maintenance and repair without replacement of materials, and changes to things within churches rather than the building fabric. If something is on list A, these are things that can be logged in the church logbook and should be logged on the online faculty system, but then you can go ahead and progress the works without having to seek any permission. List B is a list of works that can be undertaken with a shorter application and the archdeacon's authorization. Some examples of List B works are works of repair affecting building fabric, as long as no new material is being introduced, new or replacement notice board, works to trees, or introducing a bench in the churchyard. So those are all things an archdeacon can authorize. There's also a process that can be used to trial something prior to making a permanent change. For example, if you want to try temporarily removing a few pews to see how that works, in order to try creating more flexible space and seating, you can apply for a temporary minor reordering order from the archdeacon to trial that. Okay, and that is also done via the online faculty system. Okay, next slide. This is where the fun part comes in. Okay, so there are no prizes. This is just for your own interest, okay? But I'm going to run through quickly 20 things. Just jot down whether you think it's list A, no permission needed, B, and something an archdeacon can authorize, or F, full faculty, okay? And we'll just see how you do, and then I'll run through the answers. Okay, so we'll just do it quickly. So first one, replaster and paint a church interior in the same color. Okay. Number 2, repairs to guttering. 3, replace roof slates or lead like for like on an unlisted building. 4 is like for like replacement of roof covering on a listed building. 5, replace the roof covering with a new material. For example, instead of lead, use turn-coated stainless steel. 6, introduction, removal, or disposal of kneelers or pew runners. 7 is new or replacement of altar frontal. 8, installation of an electrical pew-based heating system. 9, rewiring. 10, installing broadband. 11, replace a pipe organ with an electronic one. 12, replace light fittings with fittings suitable for LEDs. 13, install weather sheeting or gale breaker in tower windows or louvers. 14, installation of bird netting to tower windows. 15, installation of bird boxes in the church tower, example, Swift boxes. 16, installation of bat boxes as part of a bat management program. 17, remove a redundant chimney. 18, regild or repaint the church clock. 19, install a projector and screen in a listed building. And 20 is installation of a projector and screen in an unlisted building. Just gives you a little bit of a flavor, okay? Now, I'm going to just quickly run through those and it's just for the glory, no prizes, okay? Right. So first one, replaster and paint the church interior in the same color is list B. Repairs to guttering is A. Replace roof slates or lead like for like on an unlisted building is A. Like for like replacement of roof covering on a listed building is list B. And then if you're going to replace it with something that's not like for like, a new material, that's a full faculty application. Introduce, remove, or dispose of kneelers or pew runners is list A. New or replacement altar frontal is a full faculty. Installation of an electrical pew-based heating system is list B. Brackets, as long as the pews are later than 1850 and not of historic interest. Okay. Rewiring, though, list A. Installation of broadband is list B. Replace the pipe organ with electronic organ is a faculty. Replace light fittings with fittings suitable for LEDs is list B. Installing weather sheeting or gale breaker on tower windows is a faculty. But if you install bird netting on the tower windows, it's list A. If you install bird boxes in the church tower, it's list B. And if you install bat boxes, it's list A. Take a redundant chimney out, faculty. Regild, repaint the clock, faculty. Install a projector or screen in a listed building, faculty. Install a projector and screen in an unlisted building, list B. Okay, so I do that like that because it doesn't necessarily make logical sense. And that's why it's just not always obvious. And so it's okay to ask the question and say, you know, we're thinking of doing this. What do we need to do? And, you know, I live with list A and B on my desk right there, ready to look all the time. Okay. And I am always trying to read list A and list B pretty generously to see whether or not something can be list A or list B before we just say, yeah, it's going to need a full faculty application. It's always good to make sure that you have the appropriate permission in place. It protects the PCC to have the correct permission. And it's much better to do that, get the permission in place, than to forge ahead with work and find out later that you need to do a retrospective application. So I think that's enough about just talking. Last message again from me is just, if all of the rest becomes a blur, just keep in touch, ask the question, and I'm here to help. Okay.